there was a gigantic trade that happened over the weekend that I think sends a pretty big shock throughout the league. Let's talk about Quinn Hughes on his way to Minnesota. Quinn Hughes is on his way to the Central Division, traded to the Minnesota Wild for 3 very good young hockey players and a first-round pick. Let's start on the Canucks side of this. Actually, no, because that one can get a little down. Let's go on the Minnesota side of this conversation. They are in a very unenviable spot because the Dallas Stars are a really good hockey team, and the Colorado Avalanche are playing at an elite level right now. You could make the case. Those are the 2 best teams in the National Hockey League, and they are both in Minnesota's division. And Minnesota has a good hockey team. We had them come through Calgary here a little bit ago, and they didn't do well against the Flames, but they were playing unbelievable hockey leading up to that. And you can see where this is a dangerous group with Kirill, Kaprizov, obviously, at the head of all of that, but just some solid pieces throughout the lineup. And then on that blue line, there's a lot to be excited about with Faber. Spurgeon is just solid, and he's getting more and more recognition as the year goes on. And then both goalies are playing insane right now. So honestly, I credit Minnesota and Bill Guerin greatly for making this move. There are so many times in sports you will hear, well, you know what? We got like Blue Jays for forever. We would hear, well, you got the Yankees, you got the Red Sox. What, you may as well just rebuild. And hopefully you can kind of come back at a time where they're not the juggernauts. That's such a loser mentality. There would be, I think, a lot of teams that would see those 2 at the top of it and be like, you know what? This ain't our time, man. Let's try to kind of regroup. Now, you can't do that with $16 million for Kaprizov coming up, or 17 or whatever it is. So you obviously have to make a real go of it. But I do think a lot of teams would kind of fold up shop a little bit and just, you know what, let's see where we land and not give up a few futures to try to be competitive with them. But Minnesota recognized, hey, we're a good team too. They got to worry about us. So can they? And go out and make this move. And now with Faber and Hughes on the blue line, that is about as good of a 1-2 as you're going to get in the National Hockey League. This makes them a real player. Does it make them better than Dallas? I don't think so. I still think that a little bit more secondary scoring is needed to have that be the case. And then Dallas is just playing at a juggernaut type of a level. But even them, they have some weaknesses as well. So I think it is clear why Minnesota is still attached to rumors about Nazem Kadri. But I still think that this is a team that is in a very, very good spot. And I love how aggressive they are being here. For the Canucks, you don't win a lot of these trades. It is very difficult with a move like this to make 4 quarters equal $1. That being said, this is a really good return. Like, Bouillon is not going to be Quinn Hughes, but he can be a pretty good, he's the Quinn Hughes we have at home, sort of a thing. Like, that's a real strong upgrade to the youth and the kind of the core of this team. Marco Rossi, I have my concerns about him turning into that like real number 1 center, but they need Elias Pettersson to turn into a number 1 center. If Rossi can be a number 2 that they haven't had in a really long time out there since like, I don't know, like the Sedin twin times. Obviously, you know, they were not in the number 2 line, but you know what I mean. Going back to that time, that's kind of all they need him to be right now. And there's a little bit more pressure, or a little bit less pressure, on him than in Minnesota. And an opportunity, I think, for him to kind of grow into a good role there. And then the prospect they got, you hear a lot of talk about how injuries just kind of hit at the exact wrong time in his development, but we'll see what would they kind of turn into. But this certainly does signal that the for sale sign is really up in Vancouver. And we can talk till we're blue in the face about how they screwed up this young core, but they have at least kind of recognized it and are at least moving now in a more youthful direction. It was nice to see the Canucks get a first-round pick and not flip it for a defensive rental who is a 3-4 defenseman right away. So smart out there for Van, I suppose. Just quickly, because you can kind of see a bit of a local angle to this one. Obviously, Rasmus Andersson is now once again the prettiest girl at the bar with in terms of the defensive market in the NHL, and maybe just the trade market in general, because very reasonable contract to take on this season. Rental, but very reasonable contract to take on this season. Talked about this on radio out here in Calgary. I don't think that you can just copy and paste whatever Buffalo was going to give Vancouver and just be like, well, we'll take it. Or the New Jersey offer, and yeah, okay, we'll take that. That's not going to be the case. The one thing, though, is that maybe in these discussions, teams that were going for Quinn Hughes maybe recognize that the list of untouchables wasn't as long as they thought. And so maybe that does kind of pry another person loose that the Flames didn't have at their disposal in some of these negotiations before. So I don't think that you can compare the two even a little bit, but sometimes it just, okay, well, we were going to trade that guy for Quinn Hughes. So what if we just did that and one more thing for Rasmus Andersson and we're good and we can kind of delete a few of the things we had in the Hughes offer. But this big one that we didn't think we'd get to, maybe we do that for Andersson. So I do think it kind of helps out the Flames here a little bit, that you can kind of see where the market is at with a few of these teams, and they've had a few discussions about guys they maybe didn't think they would have discussions about before. So just a really interesting trade, and a Minnesota team that I've always kind of liked. Very excited to see them now and what they can be, even after just a couple of games here with Quinn Hughes. So let me know in the comments who won this trade. Feels like Minnesota, they got the best player, but the Canucks did really well for a team in this spot. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comments section below, or if you're listening, find me on social media at PrimetimeKlein, and we can talk about it. It's been a bit of a all over the place December for Couch Potato Diary, so you're going to want to hit that notification bell so you know when we're going live and when videos are coming out from Couch Potato Diary. Every time you do that, it helps out the show quite a bit.